thank you for coming and stay on the bench. Oftentimes we don't have opportunity to get a lot of judges to come on. And again, the people keep overlooking the judges when we have these elections. So we have a responsibility here to at least try to have someone come on that we know that's credible, has got a good track record, and for you to consider, because most of the people that's been following us, I think you may have voted for Judge Veal maybe 2-3 times in the past, what, 4 years?
8 years.
8 years,
8
because...
years. In 06 was when I was appointed, remember, in 04.
Right.
Then I ran in 06.
Right.
So they voted for me then. I ran for the Appellate Court in 2010 and lost to Aurelia Paczynski. That was for the Appellate Court.
Right.
And then this past primary, you know, I was running, so people are familiar with that. I ran back then for the Appellate Court also.
Right,
so,
right. And that came out of a circumstance that you hadn't planned on.
Right.
And I don't think too often people come and say, you know, we just unfortunately had a judge pass and a vacancy has become available. You wasn't even thinking about that.
No, I was not. No.
So some of you guys may recall seeing her name on the ballot back in this past March for the appellate seat. So now you're up for retention.
Right.
And when you serve, when you get elected, you serve 6 years. And
you serve 6 years. And after the 6 years, then you come up for retention.
So when the people, some of you guys is watching, voted for her in 06, now she's done 6 years of service, and now it's time to make a decision for retention. There is no one else running. It's just yes or no.
Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Right.
So the judges that are up for retention, they're 56, and they must have 60% yes from those who voted.
Okay.
So from, not from all of the people that are registered to vote,
no.
just from those that voted, we have to have 60%.
Well, thank God they wrote it that way, because with these low voter turnouts, I don't know if we have
bad,
anybody here
yes.
that, you know, the turnout is so low. And we always recommend that you start at the bottom of the ballot and work it. We know Obama's up at the top of the ballot, so come on. Start at the bottom of the ballot if you can. I understand, I didn't want to give out any bad information. I understand on an electronic machine you can't start at the bottom of the ballot.
Like you have to start at the top and go through it.
You have to start at the top. But
right.
if you get a regular card, the big card, do yourself a favor, start at the bottom of the ballot and make sure you look for Judge Pamela Hill-Veal's name. Like I said, you've been on the bench since you got appointed in 04.
Right.
So now we're looking at 8 years of service.
Right.
8 years of service. So I know you wanted to come out and share a few things. We don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to kind of give you the lead way to get the ball rolling. And as you speak, then I'll try to ask you maybe some counter questions to what the viewers may want to ask you if they were here.
You know, as usual, you know, I always try to stress to people the importance of voting for the judges. And people just don't feel that it's important. They don't feel that they are going to need a judge in their life. They feel as though they live a good life, they don't do anything wrong, their children aren't going to do anything wrong. So the judges really aren't that important to me. That's how some people think. But you never know when you are going to be forced in a situation where you're going to be in front of a judge. And it's so interesting when people tell me, you know, oh, the judges, they aren't that important. But when something happens to a family member or a friend, the first thing they're going to do is call somebody up and say, oh, what's that judge like? You know, is that a fair judge? Well, see, those are things that we need to figure out prior to a situation occurring. We need to know who's on the bench. There are other ethnicities who are so concerned about judges, they make sure all of their judges get on the bench, and they make sure that they stay on the bench. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we support judges that think like us, come from the same type of cultural background, in order to have people understand, a judge can understand and relate to some of the things that occur in front of them when people come in front of them.
Well, you know, one thing I've always talked about, and I always get quite a few people, they grin when I always talk about the spirit of the law. because the letter of the law, you're bound by that, but the spirit of the law can vary depending. I always get a kick out of the joke that when Judge Strayhorn was on, he was trying to be lenient to this young man. He said, "Oh, I can do that on." He gave him 5 years. Some say, "Oh, I can do that standing on my head." And he said, "Well, I'll give you another 7 years so you can get on your feet and think about it." See, because he had those perimeters,
right?
5 to 12 or whatever,
right,
and he was trying to say, "Well, I get a guy not a break, but give him opportunity maybe to learn a lesson without giving the full term." And that I always used to laugh at that joke, and when I heard that, so it varies.
It varies, and you know, if you read your history, that's what I always say, read your history. And even though there's a letter of the law, sometimes the letter of the law is not fair and equitable. I mean, there's a time when the law said that we were second-class citizens.
Right.
So there were judges at that time who were courageous enough to make the appropriate decisions when cases came before them. And we need people now that have the courage to do the same thing. People think that we have advanced so much and, you know, everything is equal and we're all fine and everything's okay. From my perspective, from my view, it's not. The only thing is, it's just not written, you know, whites and colors.
Right.
But sometimes I believe that we have slipped back so far. And I truly understand why we don't vote. When we don't feel like we are part of the process, when people make us feel like we're outsiders, when people make us feel like we are nothing, then we become a little apathetic and we just exist day by day. And I think that's a reason as to why a lot of our people don't vote. They feel as though they voted for people that have not looked out for them, that don't care about them, and all they wanted was the vote or just the position. And so I truly understand why, but we have to still in some kind of way get our people motivated to vote and to stand up like we used to in the 60s. I remember in the 60s. And I remember when things were white and colored and going into the back in order to get your food. Having different qualities of food. I remember those days. Some people don't. Some people think that, oh, well, you know, that's the past. It's not going to happen again. But from where I sit and from what I see, we're slipping.
And then, you know, as far as the voters, there are a small percentage do the due diligence. They try to check, but I personally, this is my personal opinion, that sometimes we have to try to call around and look at who's running and ask some people, do you know any of these judges? Have you had any experience? Because, as I had mentioned to you there's one website that I was monitoring that was supposed to put out some ratings on the 13th of September. They said they wouldn't do it till the 21st. And I've talked to other people other than yourself that say sometimes we have to even be leery sometimes of these different bar associations. Now, is the Cook County Bar Association, is that the African American? You got the Gay Bar Association and Latino American Bar Association.
You have the Hispanic, the Puerto Rican, we have the Black Women's Bar. I'm protesting the bars. So when they see my ratings, it's going to be not recommended, not qualified, however it's going to be. But from my perspective, let
me cut you off. Is that really fair for them to give that type of rating if you don't want to participate in that process?
That was my point. Just because I choose not to participate in that does not mean that I'm not qualified or anyone else that's doing it. I protested because the process is not fair. So some of the viewers may say, well, why didn't you go in front of the Cook County Bar? Well, it's not like that. It's either you go for all or none. So I can't pick and choose and say, oh, I'll go in the Cook County Bar, I'll go to the Puerto Rican Bar. No, it's either you go or you don't.
They do it all at one time?
They do it. It's the
have
alliance.
Representatives.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
There.
And it's not a fair process. I think
is that in an open forum?
No, you can't go.
Oh, I mean, when I say open, I mean, well, yeah, it's you and the representatives.
And yeah, you go in and you present yourself or whatever. And in many instances, candidates have felt as though they've already made up their mind. they have not fairly come to a decision as if someone's recommended or not. If these lawyers, if they don't like a judge, or if the judge ruled against them, it's so much prejudicial things that go through the process that I said that unless they come up with something different, they were not going to see me.
And then I was thinking, how many lawyers take the time to fill out the evaluations on judges? And some of those judges, they haven't even won in front of.
Well, I tell you what, it's just like anything else. When you don't like something or something doesn't go your way, you complain about it. But when things are good for you, you never write a letter to talk about how great this judge was or how they treated you. But if you don't get your way, then you always want to go and complain. People never think about what did they do or what were the facts that made a judge make a certain decision. So when these lawyers get angry at a judge, or they don't like the judge, or they feel as though the judge never should have gotten that position, or there are a lot of lawyers that wish they were judges and can't be, and then they take it out on us, that's unfair. So they need to come up with an entirely different process to evaluate judges. And it clearly, in my mind, just because I choose not to come in front of you does not mean that I'm not qualified. I think that they should have something that says the person wasn't evaluated, or we didn't evaluate them and they chose not to come.
Available.
No rating, right, something like that.
But to say not qualified,
not qualified.
I don't like that language. I saw a lot of those NQs on these forms where they had all these bar associations and had all these letters. As a matter of fact, I had to study the guide for a minute to try to figure out, because they had all these different letters for different things. I said, oh my God, this is a mess. And then I went to another page and saw a list of sitting judges and law firms that had donated to certain associations.
Right.
And I said, wait a minute, what is that? You know, my mind went another and said, what is that about? Why are they making these big donations to these organizations as rating? And I couldn't find one. Some people say they're nonpartisan, these rating associations, not the bar associations. There's other organizations, which I won't mention, that say they provide a service. And I mentioned one to you earlier, that they're just waiting for all these ratings to come in, and you go to their website, it's a one-stop shop, and then you got all these links to these other bar associations where they disseminating information. So I said to myself, I saw where they were not-for-profit. I said, well, why aren't they trying to raise some money and do an independent evaluation, maybe kind of based on what you were saying, that it's got to be another way to do this?
Well, we have, for the retention judges, cookcountyjudges.com. And you can get on that website and click on all the ones that are up for retention. They have a little bio, and some people have pictures. But I've always told people that if you want to know about a judge, go sit in the courtroom.
Right.
You have a right to sit in the courtroom, except for some, you know, like in juvenile court, you can't do that. But in the Daly Center, in Markham, Bridgeview, Rolling Meadows, just walk in the courtroom and just have a seat and watch the judge yourself. You don't have to depend on other people, because a lot of times, a lot of these organizations, a lot of the lawyers, they have agendas, and they want their agenda to be put forth. And I think that that's totally unfair for the judge that they're trying to do that too. So I tell people all the time, go look and sit for yourself. You can see what a judge is like, and you can see what the temperament is like.
So after you're retained this year, you won't be up again for another 6 years?
Another 6 years, yes.
And after that, it's just retention? And
yes.
So going back to 2004, when you were appointed, you were what they call an associate judge?
No. I was still a full judge. I was filling a vacancy.
Oh, you were filling a vacancy.
Filling a vacancy. And then when that occurs, you must run in the next election. So since I was appointed in 2004, I had to run in that '06 election.
So some of the associate judges, they want to get bumped up to full circuit. They really have to
They
either
have to
stay
run.
put or run.
They have to run.
Look for a vacancy that comes up.
Now the associate judges, we vote on them.
Right.
So, and they come up every 4 years and we vote on them. But the full circuit judges.
Now those are basically lawyers that have well, I don't want to get into that too much, but when you say other judges select associate judges, it's not the chief judge doesn't do that.
No, judges like me, we vote on who should be an associate judge when there are vacancies.
So they have to provide you credentials,
Yes.
and they practice in domestic relations or juvenile or whatever, and you try to make a decision.
I always say, just in order to be a judge, I ran and the people voted for me, so they knew about me. So for the associate judges run in front of us, the circuit court judges, and then we decide, we do a vote, and we decide who we want.
Well, do you have any other advice? Because by the time people see this, we'll be getting pretty close to the early voting is late October up to the day before, I think, the 6th of November, to try to make some decisions. Or if you find some decent judges like Judge Veal, you know, kind of talk among your friends with these names. And then many people, probably 3 out of every 10, I don't know if that's lowball or not, have probably been in front of a judge at some point in time.
For something.
Right.
It can
Traffic,
be a lot of, right.
Domestic relations or something civil or small claims court. There's so many, a lot of people get caught up in probate.
With the deaths.
Yeah.
But my courtroom, I have a lot of people that credit card debt. Aside from some other things, some torts and contracts, I have a big debt collection case. So I have a lot of people that have been in front of me who've been trying to kind of straighten out these credit cards. So, you know, some people, I'll tell you one thing, I try very hard to help everybody with those credit card debts. Deep down inside, if they think about the orders, I try to make them enter into an agreement. Now, if the people don't comply with the second agreement, then that's on them.
And then you end up with a judgment.
They're going to eventually have a judgment against them.
So if they can work it out without having something to further tarnish, because if they're there for that, they probably already, the credit is probably a little...
It's a little shaky.
Yeah,
it's a little shaky.
So it can
and
make
I
it worse.
understand that, and I don't want that, especially because understand, you don't have a job, and then you get a judgment. There are some employers that are looking up your credit rating, and if you have a judgment against you, then you're not going to get the job. And I talk about that all the time, that I try very hard not to enter a judgment, try to have people enter into some type of an agreement to work out something so there is no judgment. And then also, you know, you have so many people that have used their credit card for health care, for prescriptions. I mean, for what I consider the basic necessities.
Not buying big screen TVs
and
going shopping.
The bags, the purses, and things like that. But some people, they need the credit card. I mean, they buy food with it, and I take all of that into consideration.
And you know what's real painful? See, people, you know, our parents, they look forward to paying their home off, and then these people came with these bright ideas, these second mortgages. I mean, people, the generation before never even considered the time would ever come when they got in the golden years, the autumn of their years, they wanted their house to be paid for, just to say that that's for they didn't have that mortgage to pay. It wasn't because they had all this equity at the access, you know. And it's a shame to see these people taking these second mortgages out to pay off $30,000 worth of credit card debt. Instead of cutting up the card, they keep the card, and you look up a year later, they're back in credit card debt again.
Well, sometimes what people do is use a credit card to pay off a credit card, to pay off a credit card. You know, but I know I've had cases, I remember several years ago, where someone was telling me how they had lost their job, and they had all these issues, and then I looked at the credit card, and they had all of these food. They would go out, the McDonald's, Burger King, because all of them use the credit card, and then they went to a luxury restaurant and paid $700 and something for a meal. That tells me something.
Right.
You know, so a lot of times we have people that want things now. They don't know how to hold off and wait. They want it now. And these are the things that happen to us. We get into these debt situations and we don't have a job. When you don't have a job, you have to cut back.
Right, right. What we're going to do here, Talking Success, I had mentioned to you earlier, we got some videos that's not that dated. Your qualifications hasn't changed. The information, so when you go on Facebook, our Facebook page, we're going to start replacing and repositioning some of the videos of you down here when you were running in 06.
Oh, yeah. Long time ago,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, you gotten better. And maybe a few from this past year, so people can pass your name on to their friends, say, well, it's not so much just talking about Judge Veal. You can go look some videos on YouTube and Talking Success site.
And I welcome anyone to come to my courtroom. I'm in the Richard J. Daley Center, 1102. Pop in, watch, hear, ask the clerk questions. You might not be able to ask me questions.
Right.
But I welcome people to come in and watch the process.
And the one thing I noticed, I noticed that some of these bars were asking attorneys about judges, but I didn't recall anything how they would try to get that information from the public. So that's someone who has actually gone in front of the judge, and they're not privy to that information.
No, no.
And then for judges speaking on, attorneys speaking about a judge that they never been in front of, I don't know how they could give a good evaluation of a judge. So you said 56 judges up for retention.
Yes, there were 58. Now there's 56. Two dropped out.
And so this organization, you said, is Cook County.
Oh, CookCountyJudges.com.
CookCountyJudges.com.
And yes, and all of the judges that are running for retention are there, and many of them have put their bio and their photo there. So just go on there on that site, and it's www.cookcountyjudges.com, and then you'll see it there. You'll see me there too.
Okay, so so based on that, do you know offhand? I know you had a meeting recently. All the judges that's running for retention participating with this particular organization or website?
Yes, because it's ours.
Okay.
It's ours. Because we have a little committee of retention judges, so all the retention judges are there. Their names are there.
Okay.
So you'll have all the names, and some of us are just a little slow when it comes to that technology.
Right.
So some people just haven't put all of their information on, but we're encouraging all the other judges to make sure that they have all the information on there for the voters.
Right, right. Well, that's good. That's good to know. I'll make a note of that and check that out, and that'll be a source for some of the people that I wasn't able to reach, because out of the 56 judges that I saw that were running, I think it was 15 of them I've had personal contact with over the years. And as you know, in the primary, we put together a website, Mike House and myself, the Candidates Forum, which was similar, which had all types, not only judges, but other candidates was running, like Kerry Steele is running for water reclamation, and a few other people that kind of made it through.
Right.
So again, we're going to, I know Boise Edwards and myself and many of the other producers always try to reach out to assist you to get your message out, because it's good to make sure that people get exposed. Can't get everybody down here, and some people just don't want to be, be bothered. I've even talked to some people who say, well, I don't, think that I'm gonna have a problem getting the required yes votes to retain, but it's always a first time for everything.
You never know. But I've always felt, and I've always been happy that you, Boise Herald, everyone has asked me to come down when it's not an election.
Right.
So that I can share information about what's going on in the court and how things are done. And like I tell all the viewers, call me up, you need for me to, because I still go to schools or to community groups, when people call me and ask me to go. I do. I still need to, my personal self, to keep my finger on the pulse of our community. I grew up here. I love our community. I like to be invited and go and talk to people, even, you know, when it's not election time. So I'm still in that mode.
Right, and other than Judge Veal, feel free to send us a message on Facebook if you have some concerns about any judges, and I will post that website. Since you guys came together and it's an independent organization, I don't mind supporting, especially knowing that you're participating in it. And like I said, there's about 15 other judges that I know that are up for retention, to get the message out and pass that on to your colleagues, associates, and family members. That's really important. We got a couple minutes left. Any closing remarks?
No, you know, sometimes people will talk about how they may have had a bad experience with a judge, but you know, it's very hard to be a judge. You know, and people get upset when you don't rule in their favor. So, but I believe that all of us try to do our best, you know, when we try to help people resolve their issues. And I think that we have a good group of people that are attempting to be reelected. I'll put it that way. It's easier to say it that way. And to have another 6 years, another opportunity to serve. And I think that if you go through the list and you read the bio, or if you stop into the courtrooms, I think that you will see that there are some very good judges, experienced, that are up for retention. I also would like to have people steer away from those negative type of evaluations that are given to judges, because there are a lot of different reasons why those bar associations, the newspapers, all those people have given those negative ratings. And sometimes it's to hurt people.
Right. And
I think that we need to take more of an active approach to figure out who's who and who should remain on the bench.
Well, we just have to remain hopeful and prayerful. I take the time, and one thing I would, for those that may want to do the due diligence, when you see one bar association saying not qualified and 3 others are not saying the person, and they're saying they qualified, that's like a red flag. Why did they, how can one find and the other 3 didn't? You know, it's when it's not crossing racial lines. It may be a different type of bar association.
And they should also think, why would, here's a judge that's been elected, why would all bar associations say this person's not qualified? That should also have a red flag, because that person may not have even appeared in front of them.
Right.
You know, so there are several of us that have chosen not to appear. So that's what's going to happen if you see that.
Okay, and I'll do my research to find out those that decide not to participate in the big boys evaluation, and give you some information so you can make a sound, intelligent decision. Again, we want to thank you for tuning in this evening, and tell your friends next week Judge Veal will be back to listen in. So remember, when you go about your business, good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best, and God will do the rest. Until next Tuesday, have a super fantastic week.